What happens when a Hollywood icon walks onto a brightly lit daytime set expecting a conversation, and instead feels her own words slowly being bent into something she never intended? The cameras are already rolling, the audience is smiling on cue, and no one realizes yet that the room is about to change forever. Before we go any further, if you love being inside moments like this, moments that feel too raw to be scripted, make sure you subscribe to the Narration Show, hit that like button, and drop a comment letting us know where you're watching from, because stories like this are only just beginning. The studio of The View hums with that familiar morning energy, a controlled chaos disguised as warmth. Producers whisper behind cameras, assistants glide across the floor with clipboards pressed to their chests, and the audience settles into their seats with the comfortable expectation of polite debate and practiced laughter. Angelina Jolie steps out from backstage, her posture calm, her expression composed, the kind of composure earned through decades of scrutiny. She has walked red carpets where every breath was analyzed, stood before world leaders where every word carried weight. Still, there is something about live television that sharpens the air. It offers no rewrites, no quiet edits, no mercy. Joy Behar sits at the table already, flipping through her notes, glasses perched low as she scans bullet points written by someone else. Around her, the other hosts exchange casual smiles, the kind meant to reassure viewers that everything is under control. The theme of the segment is serious but familiar: humanitarian work, advocacy, and tension. Angelina takes her seat, folds her hands, and nods politely as introductions are made. Applause rises, enthusiastic but routine, and then fades like a door closing behind them. At first, the conversation flows easily. Angelina speaks in measured tones, choosing words carefully, as if placing fragile glass on a shelf. She talks about responsibility, about listening, about the danger of oversimplifying complex issues. Her voice is steady, her gaze direct. Joy leans in, nodding, waiting for the opening she believes she sees. The audience watches, unaware that the tension is already forming, thin as a wire stretched across the table. Joy interrupts gently at first, reframing a point, summarizing it in a way that sounds harmless. Angelina pauses, her brow tightening just slightly, a micro-expression most people would miss. She corrects the phrasing, calmly, respectfully. The show moves on, but something has shifted. The rhythm is off. Angelina answers the next question, and again Joy paraphrases, this time sharper, more pointed. The words land differently. They suggest a stance Angelina never claimed, an intention she never voiced. Inside Angelina's mind, a familiar calculation begins. Do I let this go, trusting the audience to hear what I meant, or do I stop this now? She has learned that silence can be interpreted as consent. She has also learned how quickly a narrative can harden once it's spoken aloud on live television. She keeps her tone even and responds, clarifying again. The audience murmurs softly, sensing the slight friction but not yet its cause. Joy smiles, but there's a challenge in her eyes. She presses again, leaning into the reinterpretation, repeating it as if repetition might make it true. The studio lights feel hotter now. Angelina inhales slowly, her fingers tightening together beneath the table. She feels the weight of the moment pressing against her chest, the knowledge that millions are watching, that headlines are already forming in real time. Angelina begins to speak, and this time her voice carries a firmer edge. She explains her position with greater detail, her words precise, deliberate. She emphasizes nuance, intent, context. Joy cuts in mid-sentence. The interruption is quick, practiced, almost reflexive. The audience reacts, a ripple of surprise moving through the seats. Someone coughs. Someone else shifts uncomfortably. Angelina stops talking. Silence falls, sudden and heavy. She looks directly at Joy, not angry yet, but intensely focused. The kind of look that asks for acknowledgement, for respect. Joy fills the gap, restating her version once more, louder now, as if volume could overpower clarity. The cameras cut between them, close-ups capturing tightened jaws and narrowed eyes. Angelina feels a flash of heat rise through her, not rage, but something colder and sharper. Frustration mixed with disappointment. She has come to discuss ideas, not to be cast into a role she didn't choose. She straightens in her chair and speaks again, slower this time, every word weighted. She says she never said that. She says that isn't what she meant. She says the difference matters. Joy laughs lightly, a dismissive sound meant to diffuse tension but instead igniting it. The laugh hangs in the air like a spark. Angelina's eyes darken, her patience thinning. The audience senses it now, the collective intake of breath before a storm. This is no longer a polite exchange. This is a collision. Angelina leans forward, her voice still controlled, but unmistakably firm. She states clearly that her words are being twisted. The phrase lands hard, echoing in the studio. "You're twisting my words," she says, not loudly, but with a certainty that cuts through the noise. Gasps ripple through the audience. Somewhere backstage, a producer freezes, eyes locked on a monitor. Joy's smile fades. She bristles, pushing back, insisting on her interpretation. The back and forth accelerates, sentences overlapping, interruptions stacking atop one another. Angelina raises her hand slightly, a gesture asking for space. The room feels smaller now, charged alive. Viewers at home lean closer to their screens. Angelina explains again, her voice trembling just enough to reveal the emotion beneath her composure. She talks about how easily messages are distorted, how dangerous that distortion can be. She isn't just defending herself anymore. She's defending the principle of being heard accurately. Joy responds defensively, her tone sharper, her words clipped. The audience shifts again, some nodding, others frowning. Applause threatens to break out but dies halfway, unsure of which side to choose. The moderators glance at each other, uncertain whether to step in or let the moment play out. Live television thrives on moments like this, but it also fears them. Angelina pauses, gathering herself. She looks around the table, then back to Joy. Her voice softens, but the intensity remains. She says she respects debate, but not misrepresentation. She says conversation requires listening. The words feel personal, almost intimate, and for a split second the room goes quiet again. Joy exhales sharply, preparing her rebuttal. The tension is thick enough to taste. This is no longer just a segment. It is a test of control, of ego, of truth under pressure. Somewhere, a countdown clock ticks unnoticed. As the cameras keep rolling, the confrontation hangs unresolved, suspended between restraint and explosion. Angelina sits back, eyes steady, waiting. Joy adjusts her papers, jaw set, ready to respond. The audience waits with them, caught in the gravity of a moment that has already escaped the confines of the studio and begun its journey into memory. The silence that follows feels unnatural, like the room itself is holding its breath. Joy Behar breaks it first, tapping her papers against the table, a small, impatient sound that echoes louder than it should. She leans back in her chair, then forward again, reclaiming momentum with the confidence of someone who has survived countless on-air storms. She insists she's simply repeating what she heard, that interpretation is part of conversation. Her tone sharpens, edging toward accusation, and the warmth that once defined the table drains away. Angelina listens without interrupting, but the stillness in her posture is deceptive. Inside her, thoughts move quickly, lining up like soldiers. She knows this pattern. A statement reframed, then reframed again, until the original meaning becomes unrecognizable. She has spent years watching causes reduced to slogans, intentions flattened into sound bites. She will not let that happen here, not now. When she speaks again, her voice is steady, but the softness is gone. She explains, carefully, that interpretation without clarification becomes distortion. She says that words, especially when spoken by someone with influence, carry responsibility. Her gaze doesn't waver from Joy's face. The camera zooms in, capturing the subtle tension in her jaw, the slight flare of her nostrils as she keeps her emotions in check. The audience leans forward, sensing that this is crossing into territory daytime television rarely reaches. Joy interrupts again, quicker this time, her voice rising as she defends herself. She argues that public figures must accept how their words are perceived, that intent doesn't erase impact. The point lands, but the delivery feels confrontational. Angelina nods once, acknowledging the concept, then counters that impact depends on accuracy. She says misquoting someone creates a false impact, one built on something that was never said. A murmur ripples through the audience, a mix of agreement and discomfort. One woman claps before stopping herself. Another shakes her head slowly. The co-hosts exchange glances, unsure whether to step in or let the clash burn itself out. The producer's voice crackles faintly through an earpiece, urging calm, urging transition, but no one at the table seems ready to move on. Joy's frustration becomes visible now. Her shoulders tense, and she gestures sharply with one hand as she speaks. She accuses Angelina of being overly sensitive, of policing language in a way that stifles discussion. The accusation hangs heavy in the air. Angelina's eyes narrow slightly, not in anger, but in resolve. She responds that sensitivity is not weakness, that accuracy is not censorship. She says conversation without care becomes noise. The exchange grows faster, overlapping sentences colliding midair. The audience gasps again as voices rise. Angelina raises her hand, palm outward, a clear request to finish her thought. Joy hesitates, then continues talking anyway. That moment, small as it is, changes everything. Angelina's composure fractures just enough for the cameras to catch it. Her voice tightens as she says, firmly, that she deserves to finish her sentence. The room reacts instantly. Applause bursts out, scattered but loud. Joy stiffens, surprised by the audience's response. She opens her mouth to retort, then closes it, recalibrating. Angelina finishes her thought, explaining that she came to speak about ideas, not to defend herself against words she never used. Her voice carries a quiet intensity that commands attention without shouting. Joy exhales, rolling her eyes slightly, a gesture that doesn't go unnoticed. The cameras capture it, broadcasting it to millions. Angelina sees it too, and something inside her hardens. She speaks again, slower now, every word deliberate. She says eye-rolling dismisses dialogue. She says respect is shown not just in what we say, but in how we listen. The co-host to Joy's left finally interjects, attempting to soften the moment, suggesting they all take a breath. The suggestion barely lands. The tension has its own gravity now, pulling everything toward it. Joy responds defensively, insisting she's being misunderstood. The irony is not lost on the audience. A few people laugh nervously, the sound brittle. Angelina tilts her head slightly, studying Joy with an expression that blends empathy and frustration. She says misunderstanding happens when we don't slow down enough to hear each other. She repeats, once more, that her words were twisted. The repetition gives the phrase weight, transforming it from accusation into theme. The audience grows quiet, absorbing it. Joy's voice rises again, sharper, almost combative. She says Angelina is accusing her of bad faith. Angelina responds immediately that she's accusing her of inaccuracy. The distinction is clear, and it lands like a line drawn in the sand. The room feels divided now, energy splitting, pulling people toward one side or the other. Angelina's emotions surface more openly. Her voice wavers slightly as she speaks about the harm of misrepresentation, about how easily narratives spiral out of control. She mentions the people affected when conversations lose nuance, when messages are simplified beyond recognition. It's no longer just about her. It's about everything she spent years advocating for. Joy listens, arms crossed, her expression guarded. When she responds, her words are clipped, defensive. She insists she has a right to challenge, to question. Angelina nods, agreeing, then says challenge must be rooted in what was actually said. The clarity of the point cuts through the noise, and the audience responds with louder applause this time. The moderators try again to redirect, mentioning time constraints, upcoming segments. The countdown clock looms, but the moment refuses to be contained. Joy glances toward the clock, then back to Angelina, clearly torn between pressing on and pulling back. Angelina watches her closely, ready for whatever comes next. Joy makes one more attempt to restate Angelina's position, softer this time, more tentative. Angelina listens carefully, then corrects her, gently but firmly. The correction is precise, almost surgical. For a brief second, Joy nods, acknowledging the difference. The tension dips, just slightly, like a wave pulling back before crashing again. Angelina takes that opening to speak from the heart. She says she believes in dialogue, in disagreement, in hard conversations. She says she also believes in fairness. Her eyes glisten under the studio lights, not with tears, but with intensity. The audience is silent now, fully engaged, hanging on every word. Joy responds with a sigh, rubbing her temple. She admits, reluctantly, that things may have escalated. The admission is small, but significant. Angelina nods, accepting it without gloating. For a moment, it seems like the storm might pass. Then Joy adds one final remark, a subtle deflection that shifts responsibility back onto Angelina. The effect is immediate. Angelina stiffens, her patience finally exhausted. She leans forward again, her voice low but unmistakably powerful. She says escalation happens when people refuse to hear corrections. She says she will not sit quietly while her words are reshaped to fit someone else's narrative. The audience erupts, applause and gasps colliding in a wave of sound. The producer's panic is almost palpable now. The co-hosts glance toward the cameras, toward the monitors, toward anything that might offer guidance. But the confrontation has taken on a life of its own. Joy opens her mouth to respond, but the host nearest the center finally cuts in, announcing a commercial break. The announcement feels abrupt, almost violent in its interruption. The applause continues as the cameras pull back. Angelina sits back in her chair, breathing deeply, her expression unreadable. Joy adjusts her papers again, jaw tight, eyes fixed ahead. The screen fades to commercials, but the energy in the room doesn't fade with it. Off camera, the audience buzzes with whispered reactions. Some stand, stretching, shaking their heads in disbelief. Others remain frozen, replaying the exchange in their minds. Back at the table, the hosts exchange hurried words, producers gesturing urgently from the sidelines. Angelina stares at the table for a moment, then lifts her gaze, resolved. She knows this isn't over. Not on this set, not beyond it. Whatever happens next, the confrontation has already crossed a line, and there's no turning back now. The red light above the camera clicks off for the commercial break, but the tension refuses to follow it into silence. The studio doesn't relax the way it usually does during ads. There's no casual laughter, no easy chatter. Instead, the air feels tight, pressurized, like everyone is waiting to see who will move first. Angelina remains seated, her hands folded again, breathing slowly as if grounding herself. Across from her, Joy stares straight ahead, lips pressed thin, papers clenched just a little too tightly. Whispers ripple through the audience. Some people lean toward one another, replaying what they just witnessed in hushed, urgent tones. Others sit rigid, eyes locked on the table, afraid to miss whatever might happen next even though the cameras are technically off. A producer steps closer, speaking quickly to the hosts, hands moving in sharp, controlled gestures. Another producer approaches Angelina, lowering their voice, asking if she's okay, if she wants water. She nods politely, but doesn't look away from the table. Joy shifts in her seat, rolling her shoulders as if trying to shake off the moment. She mutters something under her breath, not quite quiet enough. Angelina hears it, though she doesn't react. Not yet. The co-hosts exchange strained smiles, attempting small talk that dies the second it's spoken. No one knows how to reset after something like this. The countdown to returning live begins silently on a monitor. 10 seconds. 9. Joy straightens, rearranging her notes as if the paper itself might give her control. Angelina lifts her chin slightly, her expression calm but resolute. Whatever happens next, she's decided she won't retreat. The red light snaps back on. Instantly, the room shifts. Smiles reappear, practiced and brittle. The main host welcomes viewers back, her voice bright, almost too bright, like a thin layer of paint over a crack in the wall. She attempts to steer the conversation toward a safer direction, mentioning Angelina's latest project, praising her humanitarian work. The audience applauds, relieved for the momentary release. Angelina responds graciously, thanking her, speaking briefly about the project. Her voice is composed, but there's an undercurrent now, something unresolved humming beneath every word. Joy listens, nodding stiffly, waiting. The host begins to transition again, but Joy cuts in. She says she wants to clear something up. The sentence alone sends a ripple through the room. The audience quiets instantly. Angelina turns her head slowly, eyes returning to Joy. Joy smiles, but it doesn't reach her eyes. She says she never intended to twist anything, that she feels unfairly accused. She frames her words carefully, presenting herself as the one who's been put on the defensive. Angelina listens, jaw set. When Joy finishes, there's a brief pause. The host looks between them, clearly hoping Angelina will let it go. Instead, Angelina speaks. She says intention doesn't erase effect. Her tone is calm, but there's steel beneath it now. She says that when someone tells you they're being misrepresented, the respectful response is to listen, not double down. Her words are precise, unhurried, impossible to interrupt without looking rude. The audience murmurs in agreement. Joy bristles. She says she's allowed to challenge powerful people. Angelina nods immediately, agreeing. She says she welcomes challenge. Then she adds that challenge requires accuracy. The repetition lands harder this time. Accuracy. Accuracy. The word seems to hang in the air, demanding acknowledgement. Joy leans forward, voice rising again. She accuses Angelina of lecturing. The accusation draws a sharp intake of breath from the audience. Angelina's eyes flash, but she keeps her voice level. She says she's explaining, not lecturing. She says there's a difference, and that difference matters. The exchange tightens like a coil. The host attempts to interject, but the momentum has shifted beyond easy moderation. Angelina continues, speaking about how often women's words are reframed, softened, hardened, or redirected to fit someone else's narrative. She doesn't raise her voice, but the emotion beneath it is unmistakable. The audience is wrapped now, fully inside the moment. Joy scoffs quietly, shaking her head. The gesture is small but loaded. Angelina notices. She stops mid-thought, looks directly at Joy, and asks her not to dismiss her like that. The request is simple, but it lands like a challenge. The room freezes. Joy responds defensively, saying she's not dismissing anyone. Angelina replies that body language speaks too. She says respect isn't just verbal. The cameras capture every flicker of expression, every microreaction. Somewhere online, clips are already being cut, captions already being written. The audience begins to clap again, louder this time, more unified. The applause emboldens Angelina, but she doesn't gloat. Instead, her voice softens, becoming almost vulnerable. She says she didn't come here to fight. She says she came to have a conversation, and conversations require listening on both sides. For a brief moment, Joy seems caught off guard. Her shoulders drop slightly. She exhales, looking down at the table. The tension eases, just a fraction. The host seizes the opportunity, suggesting they acknowledge the passion on both sides and move forward. Joy nods reluctantly. Angelina nods too. But the calm doesn't last. Joy adds, almost casually, that public figures must accept scrutiny and misinterpretation as part of the job. The word misinterpretation hits like a spark to dry grass. Angelina's expression hardens. She responds immediately, saying misinterpretation and misrepresentation are not the same. Her voice trembles now, not with fear, but with intensity. She speaks about the responsibility of platforms, about how words spoken on shows like this don't disappear when the segment ends. She says they travel, they're clipped, they're shared, they're weaponized. The audience is silent, hanging on every word. Joy listens, arms crossed again, jaw tight. Angelina continues, her voice gaining strength. She says she spent her life trying to be precise because precision protects people. She says she won't apologize for correcting the record. The words feel final, immovable. Applause breaks out again, sustained this time, echoing through the studio. Joy attempts to respond, but the applause drowns her out. When it finally fades, she speaks more quietly now. She says she feels attacked. Angelina replies gently that correction is an attack. The distinction lands softly but firmly. The host finally steps in decisively, thanking both women and announcing they need to move on. The segment shifts awkwardly to another topic. The energy, however, never fully resets. Angelina answers subsequent questions briefly, politely, but the fire has retreated inward. Joy participates too, but with visible restraint, choosing her words more carefully now. As the show inches toward its end, the audience remains unusually quiet, processing what they've witnessed. When the final credits roll and the applause cue lights up, the clapping feels different. Less cheerful, more charged. Once the cameras are off for good, the tension resurfaces immediately. The hosts stand, chairs scraping against the floor. Joy gathers her things quickly, avoiding eye contact. Angelina rises more slowly. A producer approaches her again, thanking her, apologizing under their breath. She nods, offering a small, tired smile. As Angelina walks toward backstage, audience members reach out, some murmuring words of support, others simply staring wide-eyed. She acknowledges them with a nod, her expression thoughtful. She knows what just happened won't stay in this room. Behind her, Joy speaks sharply to a producer, gesturing back toward the table. The words are indistinct, but the tone is clear. Defensiveness. Frustration. Control slipping. Angelina disappears behind the curtain, the studio lights dimming behind her. In the quiet hallway, away from the cameras, she exhales deeply, the weight of the moment settling onto her shoulders. She knows this confrontation will be replayed, dissected, debated. She knows narratives will form, sides will be chosen. And she knows the story isn't finished yet. The hallway beyond the studio feels colder than the stage lights ever did. Angelina walks slowly, the echo of her footsteps matching the steady rhythm of her breathing as she tries to come back into herself. The adrenaline that carried her through the confrontation hasn't faded yet. It hums beneath her skin, sharp and restless. A publicist catches up to her, whispering that her phone is already lighting up, that producers are asking for statements, that social media is moving fast. Angelina nods once, absorbing the information without reacting. She's lived long enough in the public eye to know what comes next. Back inside the studio, the atmosphere is fractured. Audience members linger in their seats longer than usual, talking over one another, replaying moments aloud. Some defend Angelina passionately, praising her composure and clarity. Others argue that Joy was simply doing her job, that tough questions are part of the format. The debate spills out into the lobby, into cars, into homes across the country as viewers turn off their televisions and immediately turn on their phones. Joy remains at the table for a moment after most of the others have left. She stares at the empty chairs, jaw tight, eyes distant. A producer approaches carefully, suggesting a debrief. Joy snaps that she's fine, that she's been through worse. But her hands betray her, trembling slightly as she gathers her notes. She knows, even if she won't say it out loud yet, that this moment will follow her. Within minutes, clips begin circulating online. Short, sharp edits strip the exchange down to its most explosive lines. "You're twisting my words." The sentence appears everywhere, captioned in bold text, replayed from multiple angles. Comment sections ignite. Some call it a masterclass in standing your ground. Others accuse Angelina of being overly defensive. Joy's supporters argue that she was challenging power, doing what she's always done. The internet, as always, chooses sides. News outlets move fast. Headlines flash across screens. Tense clash on The View. Angelina Jolie pushes back live on air. Daytime TV moment leaves audience stunned. Pundits dissect body language, tone, timing. Former guests weigh in. Media analysts debate whether the show crossed a line or whether the confrontation revealed something deeper about how conversations are framed. Angelina returns to her hotel room and finally looks at her phone. Messages from friends, colleagues, activists fill her screen. Some thank her for saying what they've wanted to say for years. Others warn her that backlash is inevitable. She reads them quietly, then sets the phone down. She doesn't regret what she said. She regrets that it had to be said that way, in that place, under those lights. Joy, meanwhile, sits in her own space. Scrolling through reactions she tells herself she doesn't care about. Some comments sting more than she expects. Accusations of dismissiveness. Clips of her eye rolls slowed down, looped, magnified. She fires off a few texts defending herself, justifying her approach. She believes in debate, in provocation. But a small, unwelcome thought creeps in. Maybe she pushed too hard. Maybe she didn't listen enough. The following morning, the confrontation dominates morning radio and afternoon podcasts. Hosts argue about power dynamics, about gender, about media responsibility. Some frame it as a generational clash. Others as a lesson in communication. The original topic of the segment is almost completely forgotten, buried beneath the spectacle of the exchange itself. Angelina releases a brief statement through her team. It's calm, measured. She says she believes in open dialogue and respectful disagreement. She reiterates the importance of being represented accurately. She thanks those who support thoughtful conversation. She doesn't mention Joy by name. The restraint only amplifies the impact. Joy responds later that day, addressing the moment on her own terms. She says live television is messy, that conversations get heated, that she stands by her right to challenge. She adds that she respects Angelina's work. The words feel carefully chosen, smoothed at the edges. Some viewers accept it. Others don't. Days pass, but the moment doesn't fade. Universities discuss it in media studies classes. Clips are used as examples of escalation on live TV. Opinion pieces analyze how quickly a conversation can turn when listening breaks down. The phrase "twisting my words" becomes shorthand in online debates, a meme, a warning, a rallying cry. Angelina returns to her work, to meetings that happen far from cameras, to causes that rarely trend. But the confrontation lingers in her mind. Not as a victory or a loss, but as a reminder. Even now, even after everything, words still matter. How they're spoken, how they're heard, how easily they can be reshaped. Joy continues her show, seasoned and resilient. The table feels the same, but also different. There's a new caution in her interruptions, a slight pause before paraphrasing. Some notice it, some don't. Live television moves forward, always hungry for the next moment. For the audience, for the millions who watched live or caught the clip later, the confrontation becomes something personal. It sparks arguments at dinner tables, in group chats, in comment threads that stretch on for thousands of replies. People project their own experiences onto it, times they felt misunderstood, talked over, reframed. That's why it resonates. Not because of celebrity, but because of recognition. In the end, there is no clear winner. There rarely is in moments like these. There is only impact. A room that shifted. A conversation that slipped its leash. A reminder that even in polished studios with smiling hosts and scripted breaks, truth can surface, raw and uncomfortable. And now it's your turn. What do you think really happened in that moment? Was Angelina right to stop the conversation and demand accuracy, or was Joy simply doing what tough interviewers are meant to do? Did the line between challenge and misrepresentation get crossed, or was it always blurred to begin with? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. This story doesn't end on that stage. It continues with every opinion shared, every perspective added. And if you want more intense, cinematic, behind-the-moment stories like this, make sure you subscribe to The Narration Show, like this video, and share it with someone who loves real, unfiltered drama. Because the next explosive moment is always just one conversation away.